My name is David, and I have the pleasure of welcoming all of you again to Out of Many, One Origin, our sixth Embracing Oneness event. And I have the pleasure of introducing our two main speakers for our keynote conversation today. Many of you know Sister Jenna, who's been with us before for Embracing Oneness. She's the director of the Brahma Kumari's Meditation Museums in Washington. And she literally just returned from India yesterday. So Sister Jenna, thank you very much for joining us.
Namaste, namaste. And it's all because I love you guys so much.
Thank you. The love returned from all of us. For those of you who don't know, Sister Jenna is a very inspiring and clear speaker and spiritual guide. And she's been instrumental in many interfaith and intercultural dialogues over the last probably 25 years or so. And it was last October, I think, she joined us for one of our events. Our second guest speaker is Her Excellency Ambassador Erika Bennett, who is head of the mission of the Diaspora Africa Forum. And it's an organization that exists to support the African Union in representation of the Africa diaspora. And their strategic involvement in ongoing development on the African continent. So welcome, Ambassador Bennett from Accra, I believe, this morning. Welcome.
Thank you very, very much. I'm just so honored to be here this morning. I am not going to show my video because it takes the broadband away if I do that, and you won't be able to hear me. So I hope that that is okay. I am just so excited to be here. Sister Jenna is one of my most favorite people in the entire world. So to be able to have a conversation with her is my absolute honor and pleasure.
Wonderful. Yes, our honor to have you with us. And we have a very nice photograph we found of you up on the screen. So it's not the same as seeing you, but we all understand those connection challenges. For people who don't know, Ambassador Bennett has been involved in development issues on the African continent for the past 35 years. And she's served on an advisory council to the former president of Ghana, advisor to the Economic Community of West African States. She works as a bridge between the diaspora and the African continent, which is also an issue very close to my own heart. And she's the benefactor of many children's causes. So we really look forward to the dialogue that we'll have. But maybe I can ask Sister Jenna for you to sort of set the stage for us for this conversation. And people, as we go along, if you want to add things in the chat box for questions answer, we'll be able to look at that. But Sister Jenna, to set the stage for this broad topic of out of many, one origin, could you share a little bit just of your understanding of this idea of the family tree of humanity and what you identify as the seed of that tree, and how are we connected to that seed?
Thank you, David. Thank you, everyone. Om Shanti, Shalom, Salam Alaikum, and what's up? What a wonderful time that we're in. And David, if I had 10 years to answer that question, I would go on and on and on. And yet I can only really start with, I'm glad I was born in Jamaica. With a program like this, I'm now beginning to recognize, Erika, my depth of my Jamaican roots, which I sometimes actually forget because I've sort of transcended being Jamaican, Indian, Black, white, American. And I think that's been a very big part of our ability to become one is to sometimes even transcend the branches of identity that we tend to get so accustomed to. But it's clear that song about the fruit of the tree, wow. And Sarah Bareilles, her song about singing or playing for peace. Wow, those are two perfect songs for this program. Perfect. I'd never heard of them actually. I heard of them for the first time today and I was like, how did they find that? That's perfect. So here in Washington, D.C., in our property, we have a very, very big magnolia tree in the front yard. And we have a very, very big chestnut tree in the front yard. And they're both at the entrance of the property. And around winter time or Christmas time, the chestnuts, begin to bear fruit and they start to fall from the tree. And it's very obvious. And now that spring is coming up here, the magnolias are opening up wide. I mean, big, big petals, big blossoms of the little seed that they once were. And many times we get distracted from the seed of the tree. The most important aspect of the tree was the seed. That one little seed that grew this magnificent tree that was giving us magnolias, which we can pluck and decorate our home with, or chestnuts that we can roast on the fire and eat and get iron and nourishment and protein from. Sometimes we forget the seed. And David and everyone out there, I think that that's the dilemma that we're in at the moment, is that we have forgotten not only the seed of humanity, but the seed of the soul and the seed of our purpose. I mean, we can try to keep hanging on to the branches of identity. I'm Black, I'm white, I'm Jewish, I'm Christian, I'm Hindu. We can keep grabbing on as much as we can, but storms come, tsunamis come, situations come, fires burn down forests. However you want to look at it, things are just going to happen in your life where someone's not going to really like that your skin is copper, brown, porcelain, yellow, white. And of course, we never want to see a black and blue skin. We know what that means, right? But at some point in time, somewhere or the other, someone's going to come and look at your branch and say, I want to cut you down because you don't really belong on this tree of humanity. The fruits that you are giving me, I don't want them. I can live without them. As if that part of the tree has more authority than the seed, and it doesn't. But because we've forgotten the worth and the value of the seed, then all these little branches on the tree of humanity are kind of rubbing up against each other, And sometimes it gets a little brittle and harsh, and sometimes it cracks, sometimes it bends, sometimes it tolerates as much as it can, and it just keeps tolerating. And sometimes I wonder what keeps that tree going. It's the connection to the seed and the roots. If you water a tree from the outside and you only put water on the leaves, on the twigs and the branches, maybe if you water the tree because it has some fruits on it, maybe it'll stay a little fresh for a while. But if you're not watering the roots or the seed, eventually that tree will die. And no matter what you do, it can't revive it. And I think we're at that critical point in history that if we don't water the seed of the soul, and if we don't water the seed of the connection the soul has with the seed of the entire universe and the seed of all souls, the divine, Allah, God, Jehovah, if we don't water that connection between both, we're going to die. We might walk around and look like we're alive, but if you can't be happy, you might as well consider yourself dead. And I feel right now, David, we're at this very, very pivotal moment in history that voices like Ambassador Bennett, yours, Nina, your whole team at Global Cooperation House, taken on board this initiative to wake us up and to help us to sustain the awakening by bringing us together is noble and very powerful. So I think for today's dialogue, everyone out there, let us introduce the idea of the benefit of watering the seed, but also the seed of the tree and the roots, which is of my life, relationships, abundance, finance, health, wealth, my community, my state, my country, my world. What's at the seed of its need? What is it that the seed needs from me in order to keep it going? What do I need at a seed level to keep me going? And I think knowing the in and the out would be a great balance to help us to nurture our future. So just wanted to share a little bit on that today, David, and I set that tone because I've seen us waste so much time on being indifferent with each other and dismissing each other only because I don't speak your language or I don't look like you. Such a waste, I tell you. Such a waste. So, yeah, I'd like to set the tone for us to sort of enter into that space. How do we water the seed? And how do we even identify with the seed and nurture ourselves from there? David?
That's lovely, Sister Jenna. Thank you very much. That very eloquently sets up the idea that's used in many different traditions, I think, about an image, a metaphor of the tree and how we're connected on one tree. But that sense of watering the seed is such an important thing. And I think we'd all like to hear you speak about this for the next 10 years, but we also feel very honored that Ambassador Erica Bennett is with us. And we know you two know each other. So we're just going to try and let you have a conversation and we'll listen in for it. But Ambassador Bennett, I did want to start by asking you, how do you relate? What resonates for you with this idea of the tree of humanity? How does it connect with your work with the Diaspora Africa Forum? And what do you identify as the seed of that tree in your own philosophical, spiritual journey? So maybe you can try to answer those three little pieces, and then I know you and Sister Jenna can have a nice conversation. Welcome, Ambassador Bennett.
Thank you so much, David. I really appreciate that warm welcome. First of all, I have to say something. Sister Jenna looks absolutely beautiful. She looks absolutely beautiful. And I just had to begin my conversation by saying that you look so relaxed, and whatever you did in India really, really resonated with you very much so. So I have to begin by saying that. The other point I must begin by saying too is that when you talk after Sister Jenna, there's not a lot that you can say. You just really want to listen to what she's saying. And so I think she did a wonderful setting the tone. And Nina, I have to say your guided meditation was absolutely wonderful. It kind of talked about what I want to talk about. So you set the tone for me. So I really want to say that. And then David, again, thank you so much for being a part of this. I must say that this day is exactly what I would be wanting to do on Saturday. Sister Jenna had told me all about this wonderful, wonderful group, and I am so honored to be a part of it today. Sister Jenna talked about several things that I'm just going to piggyback on. And one is watering the tree. And how do you do that? Watering the tree basically is, how do you deal with your life? You are the tree. What are you doing? How are you creating your world? And that's one of the things that I often say to my children, is that we create our worlds. the good, the bad, the ugly. We do that. And so once you begin to accept responsibility, you can change it, you can modify it, you can do various things, but it's accepting who you are, what you are. And as Nina said, too, understanding what your needs are. You see, I think that COVID 2020 was really one of the best things that could have happened to the world. And I think people, they don't want me to say that sometimes, but I really do feel that this was a time when people were forced to stop, look at your life, set up priorities in terms of what you want and who you want to be. And so it really was wonderful for me. That year in 2020, we refocused our organization. I refocused my personal priorities. I wrote a book called Listening to Your Body and Aging Gracefully. And all of that happened because one of the things that happened to me is that I had a major, major heart attack. I had a major heart attack, and that stopped me. It really, really did. And it made me really look at my life. I was so busy creating the Diaspora Africa Forum and the African Women of Excellence and doing all kinds of things for everybody other than Erica Bennett. And so when that happened, which really was the best thing that could have happened to me, I stopped. I really began to reprioritize what's really, really important and what's really not. And I really came to the conclusion that if it's not life or death, it really is no big deal. And so when I go through my life and I go through things now, I'm free. And it's a freedom that I have never had before. So when you talk about watering the tree, you are the tree. How do you nurture it? How do you water it? What are you doing to take care of yourself? So I just will kind of stop on that because there's so many things I'd like to say, but I really want this to be a dialogue. And Sister Jenna and I do this all the time. We go back and forth and what do you think about that? Oh, I think about that. So I really want this to be a dialogue and a conversation. And I'm just so honored, like I was saying to Sister Jenna, I really don't have to prepare for this because I live for this. This is part of my life every day. And I have to say this before I conclude. Those musical pieces were absolutely wonderful. I'm still dancing right now. I dance. That's the first thing I do in the morning when I wake up. I find some music, and there's one song that calls Wake Up Everybody. No more sleeping in bed. And so those are the kind of things that I do to start my day. Music really soothes the soul. It really, really, really does. So I'm just going to kind of stop on that and turn it back over to Sister Jenna so that we can have a dialogue and not necessarily a speaking and a lecture. I'd like to see us do a dialogue. Thank you.
Erica, I thought I was the only one that played that song, Wake Up Everybody, no more sleeping in bed, no more backward thinking, time to thinking ahead. I love that song.
I did too. I did too.
Music really shapes us. Sometimes I think if the world can just listen more to, inspiring music and song, they would stop hating each other so much and wasting people's time. But thank you for that sharing. And with everyone that's joined in today, we, on behalf of myself and Ambassador Bennett, we thank you for feeling the importance of this moment in your life to gain more wisdom and understanding so that you can be better citizens and you can encroach in your relationship with just a better attitude and mindset. Erica, we have an idea that if we work together, things get better. You have worked with many, many governments and leaders over 50 years of your life, and you've done work that even if you and I sit and look at your accolades, it'll sound like you were showing off. But you come from a place of passion, and you've transcended dealing with color, religion, countries, even though you're focused on raising up the African culture to the point that at least they can see themselves. That's one thing. But still, your attitude is very global. where do you get your global stance from? Even though you're aware of your responsibility and your role to the African continent and its people, you've transcended it. Where do you get that global perspective? What is the spiritual effort that you're making to transcend limitations like the color of your skin or your nationality?
One of the things, Sister Jenna, that I've always said, it's you create your world. You know, I grew up in the South. I grew up in South Carolina. I'm a little girl from South Carolina. And I moved to Ghana 20 years ago. I've been in Africa almost 40 years now. And the opportunities that I have in Africa, I would not have those in the United States. You see, I would not have the opportunity of sitting with heads of states and advising them and, you know, some of the things that you talked about. I wouldn't have those opportunities. In the United States, we have very few. We have very few Condoleezza Rices and people who have achieved those kinds of accomplishments, particularly as a Black person. So that's one of the things that I do. And my mother, I have to give her credit because she always taught us that, you know, we're not better than anybody else. And then don't look at the person, look at the person's actions, look at the essence of the person. Don't look superficially at the color of the person. So I think childhood really plays a tremendous part in terms of how you grow and what you become. Very much so.
Great answer. You know, God tends to be an energy that is supposed to unite us, and yet, with the multitude of interpretations that we carry for the energy of God, I'm not blaming God for being the division. Please, no, I'm not doing that. But you and I both know that God is a unifying energy. And just imagine if God was at the seed of humanity, what would that tree be like? And I'm asking you to share with us and the wonderful audience that's tuning in today, how do you think we can establish or reestablish our intimate link with the source, with God now? Because if God's at the seed, Ambassador Bennett, there shouldn't be one person suffering on the planet. And yet there are people who are suffering, and there are people who are trying to create wars upon wars because of differences of skin color or religion or race, whatever. But if God was at the seed, nothing like that would happen. So my question is, how do we replant that seed back into humanity? Do you have any thoughts?
I do. I do. And I'm glad you said that, Sister Jenna, because one of the things my late mother, may her soul rest in peace, she used to say that I'm a religious junkie. I have been Catholic, I have been Hebrew, I have tried all kinds of religions. And what you do is find what you as an individual connect with. You see, I don't think any of the religions are better than any of the religions, but it's once you find where your connection is, and the connection is simply being connected directly to God. Where I am right now, and I'm certainly not boasting, but I am toasting. Where I am right now is, you see, I really believe that I have a direct connection with God. I believe that God loves me unconditionally. And I believe that I don't have to go through anybody to get to him. I believe that my door, when I say, this is Erica, he said, yes, my daughter, what do you need? And that's how I really live my life right now. You know, you and I had an experience that we went through with one of our very, very good friends, and you know what I'm talking about. And during that period, you know, I kept saying to God, well, this is our sister. This is someone we love. Why are you not releasing her? And what came very clear to me is you stay on your path. There's a path for her. And this is part of the lesson for her. So you take back all judgment and all of that kind of stuff. You really, really say, God is in charge. And see, we say that, but we don't really mean that. We say, okay, God, you're in charge, but let me do this or let me do that. Instead of just saying, okay, God, it is in your hands, and really, really meaning that. And so your listing audience, I really, if they get nothing else from this conversation, I really want them to get that when you say, God, you're in charge, that it has to be a real situation. It may not be what you want right then, but ultimately you'll see the good. And one of the things that when I say my prayers for the good of all concerned. And God certainly knows better what that person needs than I do. So I hope I answered your question in terms of whatever that individual relationship, and however you tend to serve God, just do that.
There was a line in the song for the first song that was played for the retreat, and it was when the light comes down. I don't know if you've heard it, that we play for peace, and then when the light comes down. And every time I heard that line in the song, when the light comes down, and I paused for a moment, and I remembered when the light came down for me in the midst of my everyday average way of living. The light came down as an experience that reminded me of my connection to the seed of the tree of humanity, and that I felt that I was a root taking sustenance directly from the tree, and that as I grew as a collective with like-minded folks who had the same feeling, that I knew we would become such a strong pillar. It would represent the trunk of the tree, because we would be aligned, Ambassador Bennett. We would be aligned with virtues, values, intentions, motives, and we could hold truth beautifully and deeply, but that's only because that we all collectively took sustenance from the seed. And so when I look at the world today, and I look at how many cultures and groups and organizations or even religious beliefs, they try to squeeze God into their path, like God is only Christian, God is only Jewish, God is only Hindu. And you've seen how much sorrow that gives when somebody propagates, and pump themselves up to say that my interpretation or ownership of God is superior than yours. And I'm baffled that in this particular era that we're in, there are some people who buy into that notion. And I feel this conversation, out of many one origin. And the fact that there's a light that comes into our consciousness at some point in time, that the fruit from that tree has got to be world peace and harmony. I just don't see any other way out of this. I came in from India this morning, and a multitude of amazing experiences, but there's also things that happened that I just said, oh, good old India. What am I going to do with my India? That stuff happens in a way that people's desires take them over, that they forget that they are a product from the fruit of the tree, which is the seed. And when they disconnect their link to the seed of the tree, they disconnect and compromise their values and ethics. And I've seen this, Ambassador Bennett. And I'm wondering, with the extensive work that you've done over the years, what do you think might be a thing or two that we can reconnect ourselves to the seed, to the source of values and virtues, so that we can bring about the kind of a utopian society we dreamt of as children, but also thirst for as adults?
Well, Sister Jenna, you said something that immediately resonated with me, and you talked about some things that happened. You see, in life, it's not what happens, it's how you deal with what happens. Full stop. You see, you give me some lemon and some water, and I'm going to make lemonade. So it's what happens in life. And we really, and see, that's the whole thing, is that we all think we can control something. And sometimes we can't even control ourselves, whether controlling other situations. And when you, again, take ownership of yourself and what's happening to you in your world, it makes a tremendous difference. The other point that you raised that I want to say something about is, it's not, again, what people are doing to you. You see, that's another thing too. We become victims. Well, look what they did to me, and da 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 da. You see, I don't believe, I think that everything happens to me, I draw it to me. There's something that I have done, and it's a consciousness that we have. So when you talk about what do, what we do is raise consciousness, you see, and begin with ourselves. You see, now I am totally non-judgmental. I am totally able to say, what did I do to draw that to me? And so I'm sharing these personal kinds of tips because I hope that it really would help some people, you see. So that's how I would respond to that. It's not what happens, it's how you deal with what happens.
Making this sound like a political question, I am curious to hear your interpretation as to why is it that when you have earned or you have been thrusted into a position of great power for a country or a nation, and many times I sit back and I look at individuals in positions of power, can make the world a beautiful paradise if we choose to. What would be like your method or message that could somehow initiate to some world leaders another way, a way in which they can make us resonate with, out of many one origins, that we can begin to embrace this concept and make policies and come up with laws that would somehow, amplify the respectocracy that we need to have amongst ourselves.
Sister Jenna, that is a political question. Thank you very much. And being a diplomat, I'm going to try to answer it as diplomatically as I can. But it is all about leadership. It really, really is all about leadership. And one of the things I can say specifically, in the continent that I'm dealing with, you see, when you become a leader here, you have 100 people walking around you saying how great you are, how wonderful you are, and you really do lose yourself. You get a God complex, that's what I call it. When you really begin to believe that you are deity, you see. And so that is one of the things. So it's very important that we really get leaders who understand that they're there to serve the people. The people are not there to serve them. So that's one of the things that we do in our counseling, in our talking with heads of leaders, heads of countries. We really help them understand that it's really not about you. God has ordained you to do this, but you're there to serve the people. The people are not there to serve you. So I think that if we just keep talking about it, just like we're doing today, and doing it in an honest kind of way, and talk about consciousness, because that's one of the things that I say a lot. It is about consciousness. It's about how you perceive something, and it's about how you interact in life. You see, we grew up understanding that humanity is what counts. You see, and so I grew up with, there's certain things I wouldn't do even if people, they were not watching me. It's because my humanity would not allow me to do that. You see, and that's the kind of consciousness that we want to help people to get. You see, I am so impressed with this group. I'm so impressed with Nina. I'm so impressed with David. You see, because these seem to be people who are really, really conscious about how do you make the world a better place? how do we get peace and how do we do that? And I think having these dialogues is very important. And I'm going to be on some of the other ones too. And I'm so glad you invited me to participate in this one. But I learned a lot just listening to Nina's meditation. And then I saw how important music is. And then when David, he just has a way of just kind of bringing it real and making it real. And so these are things that is very important, and very important that we continue these kind of dialogues.
And I want to add into that because while I was traveling, there was a place that I was staying, and I could look through my window the village. And in the village was a family that lived in like mud huts and, had an outdoor bathroom. And I would watch the little kids just go around the place with the goats and the cows and the buffaloes. And the woman's work was to fetch water, sweep the grounds, and to cook. And I witnessed that with my own eyes. And I thought to myself, Ambassador Bennett, as I looked at these souls, I said, they're not interested in world peace. I can't imagine sitting down with them and saying, why don't we change the world and make the world a better place? What I witnessed, Ambassador, was they just need food on the table right now. And are there any opportunities out there that I can get a job and just work so I can provide for my family? And then I don't mind talking about world peace. And the irony to this, Ambassador, is when there's war or when governments are out of control by not being accountable for the choices that they make and their policies and their serving to their countries and their states, is that those are the souls that suffer the most. And the paradox to this is they don't care about world peace right now. They just want food on the table. But at the same token, they have to care, because when certain leadership makes decisions that aren't thinking about the smaller guy, it impacts them the most. And so I'm wondering, with over 1 billion children today who don't have proper drinking water, with over almost, I don't know, millions of mortality rates for women who are having babies without good health care, when we look at trying to bring the whole world together, Ambassador Erica Bennett, what is that? Is there one thing spiritually, that we can do to help to empower souls so that they go beyond their current condition and then move into whatever's needed to be done because they've got the spiritual power to make it happen? Any thoughts? And I know we're wrapping up with our segment, but anything that on the spirit level that we can do?
Well, your point was very well taken. The key is people are trying to survive. That's the bottom line. And I heard very clearly, the scenario you just shared with us. But one of the things is that if everybody would just do one thing, every day you wake up, you say, what can I do today? That's one of the things that I do every morning. I said, okay, what can I do? Who can I serve today? Even if it's just the guard, giving him an extra 10 CDs. You see, and other point that you're making is that these wars affect everybody in the world. Here in Ghana, everything has gone up because of this Ukrainian war. Our utilities, our gas, our rice, everything is going up. And so if everybody would just do one thing, we have a school, we have an orphanage, and those lives is what I count as part of my legacy that I've changed or I've supported. So it's again about a consciousness. I'd like to see all 68 people on this line say, okay, today, what can I do to change somebody's life or to bring a smile on someone's face? You see, and that if everybody would do that, this world would be wonderful. So just, I hope I answered that question, but I really am wanting to hear questions and comments from your viewing, from your listening audience, David. So I'll just kind of wrap up by saying, I am so happy and honored to be here today. Sister Jenna is one that I absolutely adore, and she's an example of one person changing many, many lives. And if we could all just look at her and do half, I'm not saying do all that she does, I'm just saying do one of the things that she does, and it would truly be a better day. So I want to say thank you, David, and thank you, Nina, for allowing me to participate in this. And I'd like to get some feedback.
Thank you, Ambassador Bennett, and thank you, Sister Jenna, both of you. You raised so much in terms of this theme of one origin, and you know, the many branches of the tree we're on. And I think what you both did is just this very clear assumption you work from, this very clear knowledge that you work from, that we are all members of the same tree of humanity. And now what can we do to nourish that and have everyone in the world flourish? So I think we really appreciated what you had to say, and we're hoping to get some comments and questions from others, and I'm sure they'll come in. But I have to say, I really appreciated, Ambassador Bennett, when you talked about, you know, we all create our own reality. And, you know, maybe if we woke up in the morning and all sang that song together, it would have a transformative moment in the world, you know, because that's so important, that intention, the motives, the purpose. I think, Sister Jenna, as you shared, that we all need to share together to take forward into the world. Ambassador Bennett, you also reminded me of my mother when you said, you know, we need to raise our consciousness, and you need to begin with yourself to do that. You know, that's where we need to begin. But in order to do that, to make those efforts so that the fruit of the tree is the peace and the harmony we need to see, I think, Sister Jenna, like you said, you know, we need to water the seed. We need to water the soul that we are, and its connection to God, the supreme, the divine, however we call that. So thank you both very, very much for this part of the dialogue. And one of the questions I see coming in here is, how can we help as a society to help those in need? And maybe Sister Jenna, I'll ask you first, and then we'll hear from Ambassador. How can we help as a society to help those in need?
Great question, because first it starts with even the empathy and the compassion to send good wishes to whomever you're witnessing that's suffering. It's not about why they're suffering. It shouldn't happen to them, or you know, what's the karma for their suffering. It is just to know that I can see it, I see it, and I really wish for the soul to be okay. Your pure wishes can be one of the greatest contributions in helping society. One of the reasons why society is failing us, failing our children and future generations, is because maybe we aren't always well-wishers. And we need to get into this kind of addiction to develop the practice of having genuine spiritual well wishes for one another. And when we do that, it's of a great help, because what it does, David and everyone, it gives the soul the power it needs to get out of a situation that's in. So I'll answer it from that perspective and hand it over to Ambassador Bennett to hear what she might have to say.
Well, I totally agree with what you just said, Sister Jenna. That is really one of the real keys. I would just like to add that even in terms of being a person who really want to support someone and to really look at your humanity. See, that's my thing. And I keep saying humanity because humanity is, like the Bible said, do unto others as you have them do unto you. And if everybody would just consciously do that, I'm not going to do that to you because I don't want you to do that to me. You know, it's very simple kind of philosophy, but it works. It really, really does. And when I'm making a decision or I'm talking with someone, that's how I approach it from that standpoint. I'm not saying don't be honest with people. I'm not saying that, you know, some people you have to be a little rough with them sometimes. But the bottom line is never lose your humanity and understand that I'm going to treat you like I want you to treat me and move forward with that principle.
It's interesting because everyone, Ambassador and I worked on an assignment for a few years, and we prayed and we meditated and we sent our best wishes for one of our very close friends who was dealing with something that was just horrible. And even with our prayer and good wishes, we also physically did things. Ambassador Bennett did a lot physically to get things moving for our friend in need, but we also prayed. So we mentioned good wishes and pure feelings, and we mentioned prayer and having those practices. But in addition to that, if you happen to have a tool, a resource that can support. For example, one thing that I love doing is ever so often, if I come across a really good cause, I feel like even if I do a reoccurring donation of $5 a month, I'm just saying $5 a month multiplied by 1 million people gets something done, okay? So don't ever think like you have to do something big in order to help somebody who's in a very challenging situation. First, start with the good wishes. Secondly, see what your resources are. Maybe food, shelter, clothing, money, skills, directions, guidance. We can actually end world poverty if we want to. The question is, do we want to? Or have we just become so numb to its narrative that we don't even know, we don't even bother to do anything about it? When I was in Thailand, there was a celebrity there who, during the pandemic, because nobody was going on the streets, bought all the food from all the street people on the 5 blocks that she knew. And so she made sure she gave them the money for what they would have sold for that week. And it was nothing compared to how much that she had. And at least for that week, those people found some element of peace of mind or strength to just carry on. So I think we can do a lot more than what we're doing. We just have to get out of our comfort zones.
Thank you both for that very much. Very, very wise words to consider. At the same time, I think sometimes we send those prayers and good wishes to people in material need, but sometimes it feels in the world today it's the leaders that are the really ones that need to have their thinking transformed. And I'm thinking, Ambassador Bennett, you mentioned in your interactions with leaders, it's to remind them that God put them in those positions to serve. It's not for their own benefit. So I really appreciated that. And a question has just come in. Maybe Ambassador Bennett, you can start, and then we'll hear from Sister Jenna. How does meditation and prayer, our spiritual work, how does meditation and prayer, I do help others, both those who are suffering and those in decision-making positions? Can you say a little bit more about that?
Well, I think meditation is basically for you, the individual. You see, it's a time that you stop and you focus on who you are and what you're doing and that kind of thing. You see, one of the therapies that I learned was called rational behavior therapy. And rational behavior therapy, basically what it talks about is, again, it's not what happens, it's how you deal with what happens. And it's a breathing technique. Basically, what you do is you breathe in from the diaphragm and then you let it come out. And as the air is coming out, you're counting to 10. And counting to 10 is what's taking your mind off of whatever that situation that's causing discomfort. So I am a real proponent of meditation and irrational behavior therapy in terms of the breathing technique. These are things that you have to keep yourself centered. You know, it's very easy to get unbalanced, you know, because of what's going on around you. And if you focus on that, I mean, it's very easy to get depressed and unbalanced. And so taking time to deal with it yourself individually is the beginning for me.
Sister Jenna,
I can hear you.
any addition to that? How does our spiritual good wishes make a difference when we use our hands for those who are suffering and for those that might be in senior decision-making positions?
I think that if we all tap into what we started off our retreat with, a connection to the seed is the ultimate spiritual link. And I think it's time for us to stop squeezing God in a religion and expand Him in our hearts to such an extent that the energy of divinity and purity and peace and love refills the soul's consciousness. You see, I can't be kind to you if I haven't felt kindness to my own spirit. And if I don't feel full, and if I don't feel that sense of security from my link to God or to Source or to the ultimate, then I am going to be very insecure with another person on my tree. You know, I'm not going to feel comfortable with somebody who looks like their limb or their branch looks better than mine, or why are they getting more fruits than I am? I'm no less. All of those conversations that happen as a result of being disconnected from the seed of the tree, David and everyone. And I ask you to give it a try, to actually invite your friends, family, loved ones, colleagues at work for 1 second to imagine what it would be like for everyone to focus just on the seed of humanity, which is love and purity and peace and God. And just allow everyone to personally feel what that would feel like. Racism would end, poverty would end, wars would end, hatred would end, ignorance would end. So why don't we do it so it can end? I think it's because not enough people know. And so if today's program, when you're done with this intimate connection with us and you put it on your YouTube and then that goes out globally, maybe the leaders will hear that and maybe they will begin to invite all of their members of their countries to connect to the seed. You know, I was flying in Abu Dhabi yesterday before I came in from India this morning, and they're on their news station, there were world leaders actually praying for what was happening in Russia and Ukraine. Everybody knows that when the seed is connected to the root of the tree of humanity, when your consciousness of the seed, your soul, and the best in you is connected to the seed of humanity, the supreme energy, you know things are going to go in place. You know things are going to be better. And I don't think we should wait for things to get so bad that we decide to connect to the seed. I think if we connect now, world peace will happen pretty soon. So thank you all so much for giving myself and Ambassador Bennett this time. And it's our pure wish that you'll continue to enrich and enlighten your own lives and laugh a lot, but also pray a lot and give a lot too. Thanks, guys.
Thank you both so much. And I know there'll be lots of opportunity in our breakout groups to have more discussion of the things that have been raised by Sister Jenna and Ambassador Erica, but it's been a very, very rich conversation that you've started for us. And I've taken lots of notes here of little pointers and reminders to follow up on. So I'm sure others have as well. So thank you very much from the heart for that. Maybe just 30 seconds. Any final word, Ambassador Erica?
Well, I just want to say again, David, thank you. And Nina, thank you. And Sister Jenna, thank you, thank you, thank you. And the point that she was just raising, what I wanted us to say, and I want us to remember, it begins with us. Each individual, it starts with you, your consciousness. You know, you can pray for people and all of that kind of stuff, but it really is all about your consciousness. And so that's why I really want people to really focus on how do you change your world? And in changing your world, when you become a change maker, then it changes the big picture if everyone would do that. So again, thank you so much. And thank you so much, Sister Jenna, for inviting me. I've enjoyed it tremendously, and I will be back.
Thank you. And we have a small blessing quote we'd just like to share with you as part of our thanks for being with us today. I have a number of random ones here on the screen, and this one, Ambassador Bennett, for you, it's a Yoruba name from Nigeria, Oluwasami, and the meaning is, you have faith that God has rewarded you. With this knowledge, you remain constantly content. So that's a special blessing for you today. And Sister Jenna, for you, this one, which is an Ndebele saying from South Africa, Induku Kayaki Muzi. You are aware that violence does not build a home. You live your life non-violently, respecting diversity, equality, and the inherent dignity of all. So
that is so true. Thank you.
Special for both of you.
Thank you.
Ambassador Bennett, you mentioned that you've just finished a book, Listening to Your Body and Aging Gracefully. Sister Jenna has also just launched a book, Meditation, Intimate Experiences with the Divine. So we congratulate you both for that.